From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Thank you, Simon Marks. Thank you very much. Wednesday's programme. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are.
It's the BBG, not the BBC. You're listening to the Richie Allen Radio Show, live from Salford in Greater Manchester.
It's the Richie Allen Show. Broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
And it's a phone-in today. A phone-in. Are you ready to talk to me today? You are. You are. Good for you. Good job. I'll be opening the Skype and the telephone line in around about a half an hour's time. And I'll give you the details now, even though you can find those details on my Facebook page and the Twitter page for the show. But I'll tell you anyway. The best way to reach me and the most cost-effective way is if you're on Skype and you connect to Chat with Richie, all one word, Chat with Richie, R-I-C-H-I-E, Chat with Richie, all one word, won't cost you a dime. But if you don't do Skype and you want to phone the programme, the phone number is in the UK. It is 0161 818 2018. 0161 818 2018. And if you're calling from outside the UK, you shouldn't really, because it'll be expensive. But if you are, it's +44 161 818 2018. Like I said, there is a meme, and it's on Twitter and on Facebook. Well, you heard Simon, didn't you there? Simon Marks. He said the UK has become the first country in the world to give approval to the Pfizer BioNTech coronavirus vaccine, and that clears the path for mass vaccinations here in the UK from next week. The medicine regulator in the UK, the MHRA, says the jab, which claims to give 95% protection against coronavirus, is actually safe now to be rolled out. And you might have heard Simon say there, or Ollie Barrett, it was Ollie Barrett, the London correspondent, 800,000 doses are already on their way to the UK and should be here by the weekend. The Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, said the NHS will contact people about the jabs. Elderly people in care homes and care home staff will be top of the list, followed by over 80s and health and care staff and so on. Now, transported to the UK by the weekend, loads of secrecy. One of the things Hancock said, we will hear from him in a few minutes. He said, today is a triumph for all those who believe in science. Sure it is. And World Health Organization lackey Dr. David Nabarro said the Pfizer vaccine would not replace the other measures for a number of months, even 12 months. So for another year, we'll have to keep doing physical distancing, mask wearing, washing our hands like the clappers, and isolating ourselves when we're sick. Isn't it lovely? The media whores were whoring the bejesus out of themselves this morning. People like Kay Burley might as well have been wearing a pair of thigh-high stiletto boots and fishnet stockings. Might as well have dressed like that. Delighted. All of them. Kay, Campbell, Burden, Robert Peston, Beth Rigby, Kunsberg. All thrilled. Here's Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, today.
I know that the whole House will want to join me in welcoming the fantastic news that the MHRA has formally authorised the Pfizer vaccine for COVID-19. The vaccine will begin to be made available across the UK from next week. I would like to pay tribute to and to thank all those who have made this possible. It is the protection of vaccines that will ultimately allow us to reclaim our lives and get our economy moving again.
What was that? What was that, be? Jesus, what did he say there, the PM?
It is the protection of vaccines that will ultimately allow us to reclaim our lives and get our economy moving again.
That's an absolute now, and it will be an absolute for the rest of our lives. Vaccines, living with regular vaccination is the way we will be able to keep our economy open and going about doing things that we used to do before COVID. So get used to it, basically.
I strongly urge people to take up the vaccine, but it is no part of our culture or our ambition in this country to make vaccines mandatory. That's not how we do things.
He's lying. He's lying. What about Keir Starmer, the leader of the opposition Labour Party? Is he happy?
This pandemic has caused so much grief and so much loss, but we're now a big step closer to the end of the tunnel. And like the Prime Minister, can I express my thanks, those of everyone in these benches and across the House, to all the scientists who've worked on this and to everybody who's taken part in the trials. Delivering a vaccine fairly, quickly and safely will now be the next major challenge facing the country, and whatever our differences across this House, we've all a duty to play our part in this national effort and to reassure the public about the safety of the vaccine.
Shouldn't have mentioned Kay and thigh-high boots and fishnet stockings. I can't get it out of my mind now. It might distract me and prevent me from presenting the rest of the programme. I don't know. What about the MHRA then, the regulatory authority, the medicines regulatory authority? The chief executive is a woman called Dr. June Rain. Good pal of Bill Gates is Dr. June Rain. She was, and that is important, she was quick to reassure us that despite the warp speed nature of the creation of this mRNA vaccine, well, it's bloody well safe. Here's June Rain.
This vaccine has only been approved because those strict tests have been done and complied with. And everyone can be absolutely confident that no corners whatsoever have been cut. Perhaps if I could think of an analogy, if you're climbing a mountain, you prepare and prepare. We started that in June. By the time the interim results became available on the 10th of November, we were at base camp. And then, when we got the final analysis, we were ready for that last sprint that takes us to today. And that is the exemplary nature of the work that's been done. And the public deserve nothing less.
Yeah, she's lying. Matt Hancock was on Kay Burley's programme on Sky News this morning, the Health Secretary, and he wanted to reiterate that the MHRA is not just independent.
Yes, we will have it ready early next week. This is fantastic news. The MHRA, the fiercely independent regulator, has clinically authorised the vaccine for rollout. The NHS stands ready to make that happen.
As does the Army.
So from early next week, we will start the programme of vaccinating people against COVID-19 here in this country.
Lovely, and it's important to listen back to the beginning of that answer.
The MHRA, the fiercely independent regulator. The MHRA, the fiercely independent regulator.
But it isn't. It's in bed with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as are some of its board members. Forget June Rain, the chief executive, Oxford educated. Oxford, of course, like every other academic institution in this country, taking enormous amounts of money from Bill and Melinda Gates and their foundation. Receives funding, as does Pfizer, which gets tens of millions of pounds from Gates. Matt Hancock knows this, and he's a snivelling, treacherous little liar. It's egregious to go on national television and say that the MHRA is independent, let alone to say that it's fiercely independent. It is nothing of the sort. What will we do with people like Matt Hancock in the end? I wonder. And the UK's academics lined up to make this claim that it's all fine, no corners were cut, don't worry about the speed of this, it's all hunky-dory. Academics were lined up to tell gormless, feckless, sycophantic and utterly impotent presenters, no corners cut, like Professor Helen Villamuratne on BBC Radio 5 Live. Helen Villamuratne.
So people have some completely reasonable concerns around the speed of this, but I really want to take this opportunity to allay these fears. So corners have not been cut. the paperwork has been expedited and a lot of money has been spent on investing in sort of the later stages of these studies before we knew if the earlier stages were going to be effective. So it's been a gamble. A lot of money has been at stake, but I don't feel that lives or safety are at stake. All of the due diligence has been done.
Whores to a man and woman, whores whose academic futures are intertwined, wrapped up with Gavi and the parent company, Bill and Melinda Gates, all of them in epidemiology and biology are in bed with Gates. Whore masters and whore mistresses. They are traitors to the people they live amongst, going on television and lying through their teeth. Like Callum Semple from Liverpool University. This guy is a member of SAGE, the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, which is advising the government. He was on Sky with Adam Bolton. Feast your ears.
What do you say to the anti-vaxxers, the people who say, look, this is going to be dangerous or risks to public health having a vaccination program?
They're just plain wrong. These are the same people that are saying that there's microchips in the vaccine and that somehow it's going to be used to track people. Yeah,
we're not, though. I haven't met anybody who's questioning the necessity or the safety of this vaccine, who's talking about microchips. This is a gargantuan lie, a monstrous lie that has gone unchallenged through the UK's media institutions, that anti-vaxxers are concerned about Bill Gates and microchips. Nothing could be further from the truth. And of course, Adam Bolton, the presenter, should stop him and say, no. People are asking about the unusual speed with which this vaccine has been brought to market. But he doesn't. He lets them carry on. Not good, is it?
Yeah, they're happy to carry a mobile phone that gives their location away all the time. It is the lunatic fringe.
And as far as the testing which the MHRA has gone through, would it be fair to say that standards now are much greater than they were, in the 1960s, if we want to use that example?
I could knock Adam Bolton the fuck out if I was given the opportunity. That is as bad as it gets. That would have seen me fired during my commercial media days. It's Adam Bolton's job to ask him about the legitimate concerns about how quick that vaccine came to market. But Bolton is egging him on. He's assisting him with softball comments, not even questions. But Bolton is saying, well, isn't it fair to say that things have come on a long way in recent years? Basically, we shouldn't be too worried about the speed with which the vaccine has become available. This is as bad as it gets.
Has gone through. Would it be fair to say that standards now are much greater than they were, in the 1960s, if we want to use that example?
I'm fantasising. I don't want to knock Adam Bolton out, and given the opportunity, I wouldn't do it. This is a fantasy that I'm allowing myself, and I'm certainly not encouraging violence. I'm not advocating it. But if I was working with him, I think I'd swing for him. That's the sort of thing I would have used during my days teaching radio production. Disgusting. Anyway, what's the answer?
Standards are high, but it needs to be understood that nothing was rushed about...
Nothing was rushed, he said.
...development of this vaccine. The reason the trials could be done so quickly was because there were very many cases of COVID in the community, both in the UK and Brazil, where trials were done, which meant that trials could recruit very quickly and also look for side effects very quickly in these populations. So nothing has been cut in the way of developing of the vaccination and testing it.
Yeah, and we should believe you why Callum Semple of Liverpool University, which is also taking money from Gates, we should believe you why. Is Pfizer, does Pfizer as a company on its own have a great track record of telling the truth? No. Has Pfizer gone into the poorest countries in the world for years, giving dodgy medicine in clinical trials to the poorest people in the world, often for 20 or 30 bucks a day? Yes, it has. Has Pfizer been proven in the past to have falsified data, to make drugs that were deadly, look like they were okay for market? Yes, it has. Yes, it has. And then some. But we should believe it today, should we? We should believe whore masters and whore mistresses in bed with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the multiple organisations owned by Gates. We should believe them. I would say no. I would say believe the Prime Minister. Here he was yesterday.
And while our scientists have been zeroing in on the weaknesses of COVID, telescoping 10 years of work into 10 months, and now their endeavours are about to deliver the means, as I say, to rout the virus.
It wasn't rushed at all, was it?
10 years of work into 10 months.
But there was no haste or there was no speed, no?
10 years of work into 10 months.
And you're happy with that. 10 years of work squeezed into 10 months for a brand new vaccine, a prototype, one we've never seen before. It's all going to be fine, isn't it? When it's given to Granny, let's give it to Granny. The people advocating giving it to Granny are the people responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of grannies and granddads at the beginning of this alleged pandemic. But you see, producers and presenters are useless in the mainstream media. You know that and I know that. And eventually, they do fuck up. And eventually, an honest academic does get on the air. Listen to Sky's Sarah Hewson from around about 3:45 p.m. this afternoon.
Joining me now is Shiwan Chan, a lecturer in molecular virology at the University of Manchester. Hello to you, Shiwan Chan. From what you've heard today from the regulator, also from Pfizer BioNTech, how confident are you about this vaccine?
I think this is an RNA platform, which represents a new platform. We never used that before. So if it works, it will be really good because it represents a new platform that we can have a choice to use that to generate a vaccine, which is cheap and which is very quick. And it also has the flexibility of coping with the pace of the virus mutation. But I think the thing is that we need to be very careful because it's the speed that it took from the phase 1 to phase 2 and then phase 3, and now it is rolling out into an immunization program is 4 months. The speed is amazing. So we have never done that before. So we need to be very careful about this. We have to look at the long-term effect, the side effect, and also
side effects.
Importantly, we have to look at the long-term protection. How can it protect the population in the long term? We need to look at that.
Yeah, it was at this stage that Sky News station manager ran at full speed into the gallery and asked, screamed even, who invited that crazy Chinese bitch onto this afternoon's programme? Get her off. Get her off quick. You'll never hear the molecular biologist Shiwan Chan on Sky News ever again. She was brilliant. We have to be very careful with it. The speed is incredible. Only a few months. We've never had a vaccine like this before. We don't know what the side effects are going to be, she said. Or the long-term effects will be, she said. Get her off. Get her off. Get her off. And they got her off. 22 minutes past the hour. I'll be opening Skype and the phone lines in about 10 minutes' time, and I'll be taking your calls then. I do want to reiterate, if you did phone me last time, please don't phone me today. I don't like that. We try and avoid that as much as we can. And that's why the phone-in programmes, they sound very fresh, because it's usually brand new listeners or listeners we haven't heard from in some time. So if you haven't phoned the programme before, I do look forward to hearing from you. The telephone number is 0161 818 2018. That's inside the UK, 0161 818 2018. Outside, +44 161 818 2018. But won't cost you very much at all if you Skype chat with Richie. Richie is spelled R-I-C-H-I-E. I can't wait to speak with you real soon. Let's leave that alone for a moment and finish up with this from the Ginger Ninja, Kay Burley herself. Scotch Egg Gate. Scotch Egg Gate is a thing. What's it about, Baldy, you ask? Well, what is it about? It's about whether bars that serve food can open up in tiers 3 and 2, because bars that don't serve food have been severely limited in terms of their ability to open. So some bars are getting clever. The ones that don't prepare hot food are getting clever. What constitutes a meal? And this is ridiculous. This sums up really the lunacy of the paradigm that we now breathe in. The one that we get up in. The blanket. The one that we get up in the sky we look up at in the morning. This is the paradigm now. Listen to this.
I want to ask you about Scotch Eggate before I let you go. It seems funny to some, the paper's making fun of it this morning, but for many people in the hospitality industry, it's very, very serious. They face huge fines if they don't get this right. We don't know what a substantial meal is and what it isn't. Even the government doesn't know. Tell me, is a Scotch egg a substantial meal?
Yeah. That's the size.
Well, a substantial meal is a well-established concept in hospitality.
Yeah, but what does it mean to you?
And so people, of course, a scotched egg that is that's served as a substantial meal is a substantial meal.
A Scotch egg that is served as a substantial meal is a substantial meal. It gets better.
And to that end, we need to be guided by our politicians. And our politicians are giving us different answers to a very simple question about whether a Scotch egg is a substantial meal. And do you have one? Do you have two? Well, it just seems almost absurd. Why don't you just tell us what the rules are and we can abide by them, and then people won't get a £10,000 fine?
Yes, and Kay, I'm telling you what the rules are. The rules are that a substantial meal is a well-established principle in hospitality. People in the hospitality trade know what a substantial meal is because it is a standard way of describing the two different types of hospitality. Those that serve meals and those that don't. And so a starter can be a substantial meal. You can have a Scotch egg as a starter. But I just want to get away from this sort of the picking at the boundaries, because there's a much, much bigger and more important thing going on, which is everyone has a responsibility to act carefully, not to push at the boundaries of these rules, but to live within these rules until we can get enough people vaccinated that we can lift the rules altogether and we can all get on. That's what we all need to do.
So we all need to do is do what we're told until enough people are vaccinated. Then we'll look at some semblance of normality again. And Plymouth Argyle Football Club, you might be aware of this, you might not. I can't tell you which tier, which division, which level of English football Plymouth Argyle currently inhabits. I'm not sure. Is it League 2? Is it League 1? I have no idea. Well, Plymouth Argyle seems to be the first football club to say we will allocate some of the space inside our ground for the setting up of a vaccination centre. Vaccination centres are coming to a village, to a city, to a town near you right soon. You couldn't make it up. Plymouth Argyle, the army will be deployed to get as many people vaccinated in the coming 2 to 3 months as they possibly can. Questions about whether or not the Prime Minister will take a vaccine publicly in order to see off the anti-vaxxers and their conspiracy theories. Will the Prime Minister go on television and get a vaccine? Would you believe that he's actually being vaccinated with the real vaccine? I don't know. Matt Hancock being asked the same. Piers Morgan, according to the great Dr. Vernon Coleman. Dr. Vernon sent me an email today. Apparently Piers Morgan of ITV television has said he'll happily have the vaccine on live television. Morgan is an idiot. And he's an establishment useful idiot. I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him the real vaccine. Dr. Vernon said he'd love to be involved in the administering of said vaccine from a big box of unopened Pfizer vaccines that he could choose one randomly. These are dangerous and strange and weird times we're in now, aren't they? Right, we are going to chat now, me and you, in the next few minutes. I will open Skype and the phone line. What I would ask you to do is, I would ask you to be as brisk as you possibly can, because I think I'm expecting a high volume of calls. It always is a very high volume of calls. So I'm going to be asking you to say what you want to say, and then we'll move it along as quickly as we can, if that's okay by you. If you haven't written the information down in terms of how to reach me, it's very simple. It's on Twitter and it's on the Facebook page for the Richie Allen Show. You can't miss it there. Go and find it and write it down. And what I would say is, when I'm speaking with somebody, I don't have a producer or an editor to answer the phone while I'm on air. So when I'm speaking to somebody, there's no point in continually ringing me because I won't be able to answer you. All right? All right. This is AC/DC on the Richie Allen Radio Show, live from Salford in the northwest of the UK. I am the BBG, it ain't the BBC. Looking forward to taking your calls this Wednesday afternoon. And we'll do that once we've heard from AC/DC. This is pretty cool, right? Yeah. AC/DC, Thunderstruck on the Richie Allen Radio Show. The time is 27 minutes to the top of the hour. You know what the call-in details are now. It's 01618182018, 01618182018. If you're calling inside the UK, it's +44 161-818-2018. If you're outside the UK, a lot of people in the queue. I'll get through as many as I can. You don't have to pay for a phone call. It's Chat with Richie. Here's somebody we haven't heard from for a while. He's in Liverpool, interestingly. He's a bass player, a musician. His name is Alan. Alan, welcome back to the programme. How are you?
I'm not bad, Richie. Thanks for having me back on.
Not at all, mate. Not at all. The floor is yours, Alan. What do you make of what we've been hearing today?
Mate, it's made me... I'm having a black day, to be honest with you. I mean, luckily, my wife's back from Poland, so we're kind of leaning on each other and trying to keep ourselves, strong. Glass half full and all that, which is a bit hard.
Yeah.
But basically I've rang up just because I went to Poland in October and I was there for 3 weeks, and Poland is masked up madness, but most of the Poles I spoke to, they're just wearing them because they don't want the 500 zloty fine, which is around £100. So when you see them walking around, most of them got their noses out, or the young ones aren't even bothering, but as soon as they see a police car, it's back on their face and they're, they conform. But my point was this: I did tweet while I was out in Poland, and I was worried about this stupid form you've got to fill in, and I thought it was a bit, a bit fascistic, and I filled it in because you've got to, because otherwise you get fined, or the police will kick the 7 kinds of stuff out of you.
Is this to do with quarantining when you come back?
Yeah, and when I filled it in, one of the questions was, will you answer 0300 numbers, blah, 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 and I was like, no, I'll respond to a text, no problem, and you've got to explain why you won't answer that number. And I'll put, because I don't answer unknown numbers, my choice. If you want to send me a text, I'll respond to a text. Now, 2 weeks we had to quarantine, like I didn't. I had to eat, man. I had to go to shop. So if any of the busies are listening, come and suck me plums. So every day I was going to shop. And then November 5th comes around, fireworks going off, 10 o'clock at night. I'm sitting there chilled in my own little world. I've forgotten what I was watching. I think I was watching the Hunger Games or something, ironically. Right. And the next minute, there's a buzzer on the door. And I'm like, and I live in a first floor flat, so I open the window and it's 2 busies. And for those who don't understand what a busy is, that is a policeman. So I had 2 police officers at my door, one non-uniformed and one uniformed, one wearing a mask, the uniformed guy, the other wasn't. Now, they told me that they'd had a complaint from, they initially said track and trace. And I said to them, what, Serco? And they went, what? And I went, Serco. And they went, no, track and trace. Basically, because I refused to answer that 0300 number,
yeah,
they sent 2 policemen round. And I asked the police, what law have I broken? And they're saying no, and we can see that you're clearly, you're self-isolating.
So the 0300 phone call is from Serco, basically to check that you're indoors. That's what happens.
I mean, the text, I'll take a screenshot once I've finished of the text they sent me.
Delicious.
And I'll tweet it out in a minute. It's ridiculous. I mean,
it's
at the border,
dystopian is what it is. It's deliciously dystopian, isn't it? We'll phone you to make sure you're in. We'll get a private company. We'll give them a fortune to check on you. We're basically going to put you under house arrest. And if you don't respond to them, well, the old bill or the busies or the cops will come around. Wow.
Yeah, I know. I mean, to me, it was just that the form was madness. But they said on the government website, as soon as you get to the Border Force will scan it. So you have to have, present your passport yourself and this form. And I got my form out, and the guy said to me, "Is that your form, mate?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "I don't want to see that."
Wow.
And I was like, "All right, thanks." And we just walked through, and I asked my wife, so she was behind me. She went to one of the other passport places, and I said, did he want to see your form? She was like, no. Now, I complained to my MP, who's Maria Eagle, and I've had a response off her aid, and if you don't mind, I'll quickly read it.
Do, mate. No, she's a Labour MP, by the way, in case people don't know, and she stood against Jeremy Corbyn for Labour leader when Corbyn was challenged. He succeeded and he held on to the leadership about 2 years ago. She was one of the candidates, Angela Eagle. Yeah, go ahead, mate. What did she say?
No, Maria. It's a sister.
Maria. Jesus Christ, Maria. Yeah. I got that wrong. So
basically, her aid responded to me because I said, I explained basically what I've just explained to you in an email.
Yeah.
And he said to me that you're not obligated to answer any 0300 numbers. Sorry, I'm cooking. That's what that bell is. And he couldn't comment on whether the status of Liverpool is a police state backed up by the military. I've had another response off him, which he's actually spoken to the police on my behalf. I'm just trying to find that email. There it is. The police have responded to him saying, it is my understanding that on this date, the 5th of November, the police would have received a call referral from Border Force Agency, re non-compliance of self-isolation. Now, the police told me it was track and trace. As the constituent involved will not have answered the telephone on 3 occasions, which is my choice. The politician agreed with me on that one. Based on the circumstances given, then this would have been passed as a complaint to the police control room, who then sent 2 officers to check on whether I was being compliant. And if anyone's going to argue to me and tell me I don't live in a fucking police state, I tell you now, I went for a drive yesterday. I saw 3 British soldiers. I went for...
I was going to ask you, Alan, I was going to ask you that because, again, for our listeners who don't know, Liverpool was the first city in the country where we saw the very first trial of mass rollout of testing, where they wanted people to be tested regularly. And to do that, they introduced, to do that, they enlisted, to use that word, the help of the army. So I was going to ask you that. That was my next question. Have you seen the visible presence of the army there? And you obviously have.
I have, yeah. I mean, I've got a little video on my phone, and it's basically off my street, and it's one of them big, massive wagons, and it just drove up. My road, I live on an avenue. It's it's not a main road. You don't drive down this road unless you're going, South Liverpool, and you're driving through Walton. You might use this road to go somewhere else. It's not a main thoroughfare. That's my point. So to see that truck was a bit odd. But I also got three testing kits sent to me as well. I don't know why I've got 3 testing kits. And I was going to do a video.
I just gave you the answer. You see, you were in Poland. Liverpool was the first city where was announced to be the very first city where they would trial mass testing, regular testing of people, where you would be tested every few days or every week, so that they could because this is what they plan to roll out long term. So they said, we'll do it in Liverpool. So that's why you've been sent those kits, because they want you to test yourself regularly using those, presumably every few days, and then send them in. It is a police state.
To be honest with you, Richie, I think they sent them that because my neighbour downstairs, he'd been to Turkey in September, because he normally goes. He's a pensioner. He always goes, and he's had them as well. We all had them. But funny enough, my neighbour whose husband passed away in the summer of cancer and got told of COVID, she's never been tested, which is odd. But there you go, and that's the way it is. But for me, to have 3 of these test kits, I was going to do a little stupid video, get a bit of chicken, test it and send it. And the day I decided to do it, got me chicken out, got it ready, and I looked out the window, and because I was near a post box where one of the couriers was, where you could just basically do your test, take it to the courier, and they get it sent off, and then you get a text message or an email saying, yeah, you're positive, or you're negative.
Who would have believed?
But I didn't do it. But I couldn't do it because the day I decided to do it, they stopped the courier service. So you
could stick the test into the cat litter tray, and it might come back as positive for coronavirus. I've got a massive amount of calls to get through, Alan. Thanks for ringing up, mate. That's really important. Thanks for telling us that. And
cheers to speak to you, Richie.
You too, buddy. And it coincides that with a lot of what I've heard coming out of Liverpool in recent days. I've got Alexandra on next. Alexandra is going to speak with me, and shortly after that, we'll be speaking to. I've got a queue here. I want to make sure Amanda in Northumbria. We'll speak with Alexandra now, and then we're off to Northumbria to speak to Amanda. It's 0161 818 2018. It's Chat with Richie, all one word on the Skype. Alexandra, welcome to the programme. How are you?
Thank you very much, Richie. I'm very well, and thank you for this opportunity.
Nice
Good
to have
evening
you.
to all the
Nice to have you on.
listeners, too.
Where are you based? Where are you calling from today?
Let's just say somewhere in the Milky Way.
Somewhere in that's fair enough then. We won't give any clues as to where you are. Somewhere in the constellations. You wanted to talk about ME and vaccines. Why?
I wanted to share my experience with MS, actually.
MS.
Multiple sclerosis and vaccinations. So I think that there is a link to it, and I'm going to share my experience with everyone, and then make a few points about it from my own experience. So I've been living with the remitting relapsing MS for 9 years already. And that just means remitting, relapsing. It just means that it comes back and it goes away. It's not debilitating in my case, but it's an autoimmune disorder. So that just means that the body attacks itself. And this is how I think it all began. When I was 24, I took a job as a flight attendant for 2 years. And for the purpose of getting the job, I had to be revaccinated. And that means that I had to get another shot for the yellow fever and another, I think it was typhoid, if I'm not mistaken. So I had to be revaccinated.
So you got yellow fever and typhus vaccines.
Yeah, and that means like I got it for the second time. I got it as a baby, and then for the purpose of getting the job as a flight attendant, because of the travel, I had to do it again. So I got the 2 shots again when I was 24, thinking nothing of it. When I was 26, I was diagnosed with, I had my first symptom, which was the same as something called transverse myelitis. So AstraZeneca, when they did their first testing, one of the patients, one of the people who underwent the first testing of the vaccines, if I'm not mistaken, they got a transverse myelitis. And myelitis is one of the first symptoms of multiple sclerosis. So myelitis just means that the axons, the ending of the nerve cell, the brain nerve cell, loses the fatty tissue. That's called demyelination. So this is how MS starts, and this is one of the first symptoms. So that's my reasoning behind the way that I connected my development of my MS in that case after getting all those vaccines when I was 24. Because I think when you're a little baby, you can get all of those shots, and I think because the body is developing and Mother Nature is just miraculous, so maybe you are able to the body is able to sort of recover from all of those shots. But when you get it when you're older, like I did, I think this is one of the reasons that I developed the autoimmune disorder.
And did you ever speak about that with a doctor or a health professional, Alexandra, and ask for their opinion?
I haven't. I mean, initially, obviously, I sought different opinions, but then it didn't lead me anywhere because I don't know. I haven't discussed it with any of the doctors. But there's one more thing that I wanted to share.
By the way, by asking you that question, I'm not doubting you in any way. I have heard from people like yourself before who were subjected to these vaccines and who then came down with autoimmune problems. I'm not saying I doubt it, but my listeners will be wondering, what does the doctor say? But I understand you said you haven't gone and asked.
Because I'm not on I mean, I am taking medication, but the medication was not prescribed by any doctors. Initially, I went from one doctor to another doctor. So I'm not taking any sort of how can I say, official treatment. But what I wanted to share next is relevant, maybe because my MS is not debilitating, like, my relapses, it's just remitting, relapsing, opposed to progressing. And MS is a disorder that can't be cured. There are medications that are extremely expensive. They just sort of stop the further deterioration, but none of them heal. But listen to this. One of my friends connected me with one. Anyways, I'm going to get to the point. I'm sorry if I'm getting too elaborate, but...
Not at all. I do have lots and lots of calls in the system, but I am very interested in this, Alexandra.
So, yeah, I want to share this because I think it's relevant. I've been taking, for 6 months, I've been taking something called clemastine. And this is the drug that has been on the market for more than 60 years. And this drug has nothing, it's an over-the-counter medication. It has nothing to do with autoimmune medications at all. It's an antihistamine, antihistamine, and it helps. It helps MS, it helped me. There is no link, but this antihistamine drugs that you can get over the counter, basically, what it does, it sort of evokes your body to produce the myelin. So it does the remyelination, unlike all the other drugs. So this was discovered, and then all of a sudden, another name for the drug is Tyrannical, and then all of a sudden, in 2017, they discovered that this drug actually helps. How can I say? It provokes the body to start producing myelin again, and it was a miracle. And all of a sudden, the drug was taken off the market. You couldn't find it anywhere.
So this over-the-counter medicine, it's an antihistamine. It's very, very cheap. It's found to be very successful in treating MS, and then overnight it disappears.
Overnight, now I'm getting it from Moscow. You can get it in Azerbaijan and Moscow and Turkey, like places like this, But in America, I think the same company that produced the Pfizer vaccine, what is it,
BioNTech is the company that...
Yeah. So BioNTech actually bought the medication is called clemastine. They got it, and now they produced another drug in America that costs like $12,000 per dosage, which is effective for MS. So now they're treating people. I think it's called Tessifedera I don't know how to pronounce it. Tessifedera.
Hang on. This is really important. So they get rid of the antihistamine, which does the job. And it's gone. And now they've got a drug that costs thousands that does work. Is it the same thing? Is it the antihistamine under a different name?
It's the same thing.
You're kidding me.
The name of, there's a herb in it as well. It's clemastine fumarate. Clemastine fumarate. Clemeastne. So clemastine. That's the basic ingredient in it, and it works.
That is incredible. Now, listen, I've never met you. It's the first time we've ever spoken, and I've got to take you at face value, which I do with everybody until I find out later on that people have told me tall tales. But I don't think you're telling me a tall tale. This is astonishing. Let me tell our listeners, we've got Alexandra on the line. She's calling in from planet Pluto, apparently, somewhere in the
Milky Way.
In the Milky Way, and
from the benevolent part of the Milky Way.
But this is so important. So you developed MS. You're a flight attendant. You're asked to take some vaccines as an adult. You believe that those vaccines had something to do with you developing MS. You told us that yours comes and goes. It's not something you're living with all the time. You are still able to go about your business, but you find an antihistamine that's over the counter, and called Clemastine, and it's really, really cheap, and it's really, really good, and it has a hugely positive effect on your symptoms.
Yes.
Before you know it, it's taken off the market, and then it reappears under a different name, and it costs a fortune.
Yeah, and it can still be found in countries like Moscow, Azerbaijan, and Turkey. And I'm not going to say, I don't want to say it cures MS, but it helps. It helps regain the function of the limbs.
So what's the herb, Alexandra? It helps regain the function. It helps regain the function of the limbs. That's good.
I'm sorry, maybe I used the wrong word, not the limbs, but I've had a problem with my left foot. My foot used to drop when I would have my relapse, and it helps, but I have to take it continuously. And they can find the study in Lancet journal. I think it's British, right?
Yeah.
Is it?
The Lancet is British, that's right. Yeah.
They can find the study on Clemastine fumarate. They can find it there. So whoever is interested, I would suggest they Google it.
Well, this is why shows like this are just a godsend, because I have no clue who's going to phone in and what they're going to say. If you have MS and you're listening to this, you've got nothing to lose. I've looked up this drug, in its original form. You've got nothing to lose by giving it a go. So you're getting it now, you said, from Moscow and from Azerbaijan, Turkey.
Yeah, you can get it from there.
Are you worried that it might get discontinued there? Do you worry about that, or have you?
I am worried. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe, I'm kind of stalked.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I hope not. And there's people have told me that you can find it in Turkey as well. Yeah. And then I just want to say, thank you for summarizing everything that I've said. But
you said it very well. I wasn't suggesting that people didn't understand you, but I like to summarize. Yeah,
it's great because I'm very elaborate. But the other thing, that the way that how I made my conclusion that MS is connected with demyelination. I don't know how to say it. The loss of the fatty tissue around axon, the brain cell. How I got to that conclusion is because the guy who got the first AstraZeneca vaccine, that guy had severe side effects, and one of them was reverse transverse myelitis.
That's right.
That's how the MS begins.
And which vaccine was that? Was that AstraZeneca or Pfizer? It was Pfizer, was it?
I think it was AstraZeneca. Before Pfizer, there was someone, and they reported horrible side effects. The person developed myelitis.
That's right.
And that's how my MS started. They thought it was just myelitis.
And did that person, Alexandra, who participated in the AstraZeneca COVID trial, that person died? Am I right in saying that?
That I don't know.
I think that person might have died. And by the way, Joanne Boddington, who's a friend of mine based in Short, and I mention Joanne from time to time, she's a musician, lovely lady. She has found for me, and she's tweeted the link to the survey you mentioned from the Lancet. So, Alexandra, you're absolutely spot on. Clemastine fumarate as a therapy for multiple sclerosis has been endorsed by the Lancet. I can't believe it. So they took this drug, which was cheap as chips. They took it off the shelves, got rid of it, and then brought it back with a herb. What herb, by the way? What's the herb?
Okay. Let me just check my cell phone.
It's not that important. I was just wondering, just off the top of my head. So they bring it back and they charge thousands.
It's in Latin anyways. I don't think it will mean anything to you if I tell you, but I can. Fumaria officinalis. FUMARIA
Wow. They're gangsters, Alexandra. These people are stone cold gangsters, aren't they?
Mafia. Oh, horrible.
Imagine doing that. Imagine you find that a cheap antihistamine is good for MS, and you decide to take it off the counter so that you can bring it back and charge people a fortune.
It costs €6 in Azerbaijan. It was advertised on eBay as well. I don't know if it's still there, but I encourage everyone. Okay, it's not a cure, everyone. I don't want to get people's hopes up. And my MS is, I can call it mild because it's remitting, relapsing. It doesn't get worse. Thank God for that. But it's worth it, should definitely give it a try.
What about people who, before you go, and thanks so much for giving us that information, Alexandra, it's fantastic. Before you go, there are people who worry about environmental factors, not just vaccines, but other environmental factors might be contributing to autoimmune disorders. We might see more and more autoimmune problems in people going forward. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, God knows what they're spraying from from those aircrafts that are flying over our heads. So it's definitely not the result of the climate change. That I know. Yeah. Aluminium and all of the pollution. God knows. God only knows.
Yeah, I've still got some friends who say to me, I can't believe, Richie, that you entertain ideas about spraying. And I'm like, well, not only do I entertain those ideas, I know it's happening. There isn't any doubt about it. Of course, aluminium, barium, strontium and other heavy metals are being pumped into the atmosphere all the time. Of course, it's nonsense to suggest otherwise, is my opinion. Alexandra, you're brilliant. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Richie. Thank you for letting me share space with your wonderful guests. Thank you so much.
Anytime. It was an honour to speak to you. Thanks a lot. How cool was that? I mean, this is incredible. I mean, she's right. I've been listening and looking at the Lancet article shared by Joanne there, which I meant to retweet. I'll have to retweet it in a moment. Tweet it to me again, Joanne, and I'll retweet it. I mean, that's sick behaviour, isn't it? Can you imagine at whatever, can you imagine whichever company it is, whichever building, whichever floor, you got guys sitting around saying, Jesus, that antihistamine that we make, which doesn't cost very much to make, and we sell it over the counter, it's doing good things for people with MS. Is it? Yeah. Take it off the market for a while and rejig it a bit, give it a different name and charge an absolute fortune for it. These are the people. These are the people that have rushed out a brand new mRNA vaccine, never before seen, a prototype, in a matter of months. Something it ordinarily takes years and years and years to do. They're telling you that their own data, their own research, we've researched our own products, they're fine. And we've given them to the MHRA. Of course, we've got a very close relationship with the MHRA. So, take our word for it. It's fine. Have the vaccine. No thanks. I will get to Amanda in Northumbria real soon if she is listening. Meant to try to connect with Amanda at the very beginning. She was first in, but it didn't happen. I will get to her. In the meantime, let's speak with Jonathan. Jonathan, welcome. How are you?
Well, I'd be great if it wasn't for COVID, of course. But it's just very challenging because, my mum's in a care home and I know people who've, lost relatives and all sorts. So, it's almost like a battlefield constantly just to be able to find out what's going on. So,
when did you see your mum last, Jonathan?
Well, I don't know, several weeks back. Even then, it's just through a double glazed window. So, there's no contact. It's just like being in a prison cell, I suppose, really. So, but, I'm just grateful that I can see her occasionally, and after the first 3 months without any contact, she was in really bad shape, just, horrible, really. So, and, did come back and, I just had to work so hard, with photos and, but there's so many other people in there, and you can't help everybody, but, it's just, and now, it's going to be this, I've got to challenge somehow I don't know how to quite challenge the vaccination because it's just worrying whenever I hear, that first in line is going to be, people working in care homes, the residents and stuff, just as if they're like guinea pigs to be experimented on. They did announce
that, didn't they? Jonathan is on the line, and they did announce today that the first people to get the vaccine will be the residents and will be the workers, and then after those people, it'll be people over 80. And that's a difficult one for you, I would imagine. How is your mum? How aware of what's happening is your mum, Jonathan?
Well, she's in one of those groups that, it makes it far worse because she's got dementia. But I have to say sometimes, she has good days, bad days. But in terms of, cognition, being able to understand things, I would sooner talk to her than some of these, politicians and other people who are completely, I can have more of a sensible conversation with her, I should think. I can tell her basic things and she can understand or get insight. But I will have a battle because, my own brother is on the other side kind of thing. So I've got to find a way to block it.
I know so your brother then would be like some of my friends. He thinks that people like us are a bit silly and he thinks you should have the vaccination and everything will be fine.
Well, yeah, because, he's, a doctor. So, and he's really on the, Bill Gates is an angel. And, and when I first sent him, video footage of, because to me, I got to a point where I thought I either go down, give up entirely because, having depression and being near suicide, like a lot of people, I understand. But you just think, I thought I'll have one last look at London just to see what's going on. And I thought I'd try joining up the march. And it was just unbelievable. I'd never seen anything like it with the police presence and being, pushed about myself and just threatened with. You got pushed
about, did you, yourself down there?
Well, just in groups, just because, if you go put a foot on the road or anything, they just suddenly, you almost, well, it's just I certainly don't like the way, they see women or just somebody, because there are genuine people who've got reasons to be in London or, they're on the streets. And if they...
Well, you had a genuine reason to be in London, Jonathan. Can I ask you this? Being down there and meeting so many people that understand, as you do, that something is not right, did that give you a bit of a boost? Did you feel better being there?
Well, I did. And then I thought, I'm still not sure because, this doesn't seem to be working. It's just, just getting, because it was night time and they got several helicopters in the sky. So, of course, they can, and they were just cutting people off. And I was in the right sort of mood because originally I'd gone to see what Oxford Street was like, and it was horrendous. Just seeing it so dead that only people taking camera shots. Taxis and buses running around with nobody in them, and people living on the street or asking for money, and I just thought, this is because you can see videos on YouTube. And ultimately, you think they could be edited, but you have to see it, for yourself. And I felt I did. But at least I thought, no, I'll give this another try. So there was a stand-up X and Save Our Rights. It was a nice day on the sort of following Saturday. I thought I'll go to Brighton, go on the train, and it was a really good event, And I think, just having a light-hearted, going on the seafront. Engaging with people, just having a bit of humour, people at least notice it. But it, and since then, whenever I can, I go. And even though I can't really afford it, but I just think now I have to. And, and again,
give you a boost.
Last Saturday was a nightmare because I'd already figured out I need to be very crafty how I get there to avoid and getting all these messages coming out, people being stopped, on coaches and stopped, at King's Cross, just as soon as they sort of emerge. And so I just thought I'll get off the underground at Euston, so I avoided getting, picked up at King's Cross. And then when they changed the location to Marble Arch, I got off at Bond Street and again walked along. And I could see all the TSG vans parked outside the station picking people off. So
amazing, isn't it? Amazing that you'd have to think, I'm going down to London now and I've got to carefully plan which stops I disembark so that I can avoid the old bill and who to believe that. Jonathan is our guest. I wanted to say to you before I forget it, listening to television news this afternoon, I did hear one or two people who are in the same boat as you. They have a parent in a care home and they haven't been able to see them regularly or for a long time. And many care homes, and I'm not sure if your mother's care home is doing this, but they're offering physical and close contact if you can do a COVID test and show that you've not got COVID. Now, I know that might, almost seem like selling out, but it's something that might be able to... They're using these lateral flow tests, and many of these lateral flow tests are showing negative, whereas the PCR test is so flawed it's showing positive all the time. So maybe that's a way that you might be able to get to see your mum a bit more often and before Christmas is too.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
I did, because I saw like an article, probably similar thing in The Guardian and on Sky News' website, I think it was Sheffield, where they've got concerns. And, I sent these articles to the managers at the home, or manager at home, and basically, she said, well, we don't really see this is going to happen anyway, so we're making plans without that, because they're already aware of question mark. Because I just try to at least get people to understand, and I've against all the odds I've managed to get because it's down to 2 visits a day. I've managed to sort of book in advance just to get like a 40-minute slot on Christmas Day and New Year's Day. But of course, it's difficult because you're fighting against everyone else's relatives.
I know, but you have to see her on Christmas Day, don't you? You have to see her on Christmas Day.
30 people, only 2 people, say, can visit on Christmas, 2 people can visit on, New Year. But one thing I would like to, point out to people who think, it's the violence is on the protester side. Well, it isn't, because I even though I'd been pulled out once, and I just disappeared temporarily and then went back, because I was just I thought, even if I'm not that active, I will record things. And I just noticed that when other members of the public see something they think's unfair with the police, I saw a lady, I thought it must be a journalist, but she was basically tackling police that got some, there's always about half a dozen, and they pull somebody out, and she was she was really shocked, and she was even tackling them, asking the guy if he's all right. But again, you do wonder who they actually are, some of them, because they won't answer questions about their number or their name or anything. And the lowest thing I saw was... Have
you experienced that personally, where a police officer won't identify themselves?
Well, I've never got that far, because it's because fortunately I haven't actually been arrested. But it's just a shock when somebody just literally grabs you, pulls you out, and then they just... And again, I've fortunately got the phone still recording, so I can make sure that I'm not imagining it, because it's so shocking, really. But the worst thing I thought was, being in Hyde Park, which is fair enough, them playing hide and seek with us, and they're doing their job. But I saw some young lads, just on push bikes out on the road. I'm not sure it's next to Hyde Park, runs up to Marble Arch and whatever. And they weren't active. They were just, like you do, you watch, and it's interesting, and and they didn't know what's going. But just because they were having a bit of a laugh and a joke at the police's expense, because they're all lined up in vans and got doors open, then I had to rush back with the camera and filmed it, because next thing I know, they're all being arrested. So they're just an easy target, just for being there. And like you do. When we're all young, we take the mickey out of older people. Yeah. The police, or especially if they look really ridiculous. And it's
will you keep
keeping a record.
Will you keep? Before I move on, I want to ask you one more question about your mum. And will you keep going to the events, Jonathan? As they happen, will you keep going? I mean, it sounds like it's stressful enough to get there, and it can be stressful dealing with the authorities, but on the flip side, you said that it's good to be around like-minded people who understand what's happening. So will you keep going to these events?
Well, I will, and even online with groups, and if I find anybody that's struggling, or there's other people who've got relatives in care homes, even people lost their nearest and dearest, and it really hits I can because I'm in that could happen any time, so I just try to keep them going, because I can it's a hard thing to explain unless you really know what goes on in care homes. And one other just very quick thing, if I could just say, Richie, I saw something, about some slip of the tongue by John Bell, the Oxford scientist, and I just think it's worth looking at his background, because I just thought I'll have a look on YouTube. Found a video is him being interviewed by the Rhodes Trust, and I was just listening to it for quite a long time just to see what his background was, and it just got worse and worse. Realizing, I've had to look at it again. So if you just look up on YouTube, it's Sir John Bell, Rhodes Trust, because he's a Rhodes scholar, so I suppose he thinks he's amongst friends.
Yeah, he's the chair of medicine at the University of Oxford. This guy,
but again, he's got he's talking about a company he'd spun off, making all these sort of type of whatever you call them, genetic things with T cells. I don't know the detail, but basically, again, they receive a lot of money from
Bill and
Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yeah, of course they do.
But if you find it and
well, you can send it to me, tweet it or put it on Facebook, or send me a link through Skype, and I'll obviously share it. I'd be happy to share it.
Yeah, because at the end, by the end, you think these people are only interested in experimenting on people, and it's all about basically genetics, and literally, they want to start treating people for disease before they've even
transhumanism.
And at the end, they were just laughing between themselves, in the interview, because they're obviously both, from the Rhodes.
Well, send it to me, Jonathan. Do me a favour, send it to me. I'm very interested in that, because obviously these people are very interested in it.
Well, I am, because I'm trying to spread it now. I found it, because at the end, of course, he was joking, John Bell, talking about, because obviously they find it very funny about Brexit, and at the end they were talking, we helped get people a longer life, making them keep going when they're older, and now they voted, and all they did was sort of vote Brexit kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's all in the video.
Send me a link and I'll tweet it out. Before I move on, first of all, thanks for coming on, and second of all,
thanks for hearing me, because I just felt, I went from a few weeks or month, over a month ago, I was just like a lot of people on the edge, just totally beaten,
fed up,
and finding your show was a big stepping stone for me to pull myself back, to be honest. So
I'm glad you found it.
And
listen,
so
you see that being fed up and being depressed, I would never say this unless it was true. A few weeks back, I was in the same situation. I decided that I was finished. I'd had enough of it, and I was going to turn my back on it. And so I've been there, and there's no shame in that, because this is horrendous for everybody, particularly when you have a mum in a care home that you want to go and see. Look, the best of luck with that. Keep me posted, Jonathan, please.
Yeah, because I just very, but again, I find it's worth trying to do something, because, when I went to a Bournemouth march, I heard Mark Devlin. I think you've may or may not have spoken to him, I don't know. And, I hadn't come across him before, so I look up his website, and I look up the Ice Age Farm, and one thing leads to another. But again, it's like, when Vernal Coleman says, how he's, it gets too much, and Mark Devlin, because he's been doing it for months, he says, at times you just do have to pull out a bit and try and reboost yourself.
Smell the flowers.
So draining.
Smell the flowers. A great artist who died of AIDS once said, smell the flowers while you can. Get out and about. Use the countryside. Use the parks.
Well, that's why it was great when it's not so good in the winter, and obviously that's my worry. And I just, every time I go out into the town centre, and it's just, I feel as if I've got to get a T-shirt made which says, you're wearing a face nappy, wearing a nappy on your face. You know how ridiculous it is. I've got to get it printed somehow or something, because I just...
Jonathan, what's your mum's Christian name? What's her first name?
Joan.
Joan. I would ask.
Yes. She's 94, and
she's in good health otherwise, is she?
Well, yes, because at the start of the lockdown, it was 50. Well, they would just say you could go either way, and I didn't know. I'd even started getting all the contacts and information for the ending, as you might say. So, but she has, that's why I find it so pathetic that she's lived through the war. My relatives' family, fought in the Great War and the Second World War, and now everybody just seems to be. I don't know what's happened.
If Joan was given the choice to spend time with her family and her sons and hug them every day of the week and twice on Sunday, Joan would say, yes, I want my sons and I want my family around me. Of course she would say that. She would say, I'm 94, I've had a good life
she
now.
was saying, you've got to get me out. I want to see, and I think, I just can't. Short of doing that thing where you try and break in, take somebody out, which is...
You rang her today and she said, Joan said to you, your mum said, get me out of here. I want to get out of here. Is that what she said to you?
Yes, well, it's not because, it's nothing to do with the stuff. It's just the fact, she's just on her own.
Boxed in, yeah.
Yeah. And it's...
And Jonathan, can I ask you this? You haven't fallen out with your brother, have you, the doctor? You're still on good terms with him, are you?
Well, not really. I've had to sort of cut off because it's just too toxic, because otherwise, I'll just get all these things, sort of almost like, well, just basically sort of, pointing out how doctors are dying, pharmacists are dying,
But he might believe that, right?
He sent me, what really set me off was when he sent an unpleasant, like a forwarded picture, whatever you call it, and it was, saying basically wear the damn mask. It was a picture of somebody wearing a face mask, and the other picture was somebody in a hospital on a ventilator. But
you know what? He can I just say this? He is under a lot of pressure, and he doesn't know what you know, and he's your blood. And I don't lose him. It's going to be important looking out for your mum. That's all I would say.
Well, I have, because that's why today I arranged for the care home, to email him to tell him, what the arrangements are at Christmas. And I sent a text and email myself because, I'm just going to have to put that relationship on hold because it's pulling families apart. I know that, and and I still want to do the right thing, for my mum, and I don't want to cause friction before Christmas. So I just have to park it, and we just, do our separate things. But because I can't change his mind, he won't change mine. So,
mate, it was lovely to meet you. Thanks for taking the time to give us a call. I really appreciate. You have no idea how much I appreciate that. I'll find a way to send that to you anyway. Do, and then you'll see it on social media. I'll put it out there so people can watch it. I mean, I'll be desperately keen to see that. I wish you, your mum, your brother and your family all the very best, and I hope Joan is okay over the Christmas. I hope you get to see her.
Well, I have. Like I said, it's been booked. I hope she's in a good mood. But anyway, I'm giving me something to look forward to. Otherwise, it wouldn't be Christmas at all, really.
Yeah. Jonathan, you're great. Thanks for calling in.
So you're doing a good job. Thanks, Richie.
Not at all, mate. Jesus, huh? And as he said himself, there's so many people facing down the barrel of that. This notion, who has the right to tell a senior citizen in their 80s or 90s who's lived, probably a very good life, who's got the right to tell them it's for your own protection or your own safety that we will keep you away from your family. We'll keep you away from the ones you love. We'll prevent your sons and your daughters coming to see you. Who's got the right to do that? And yet they're doing it, and they're doing it all the time, I don't know. Right. I think we might have, that's kind of got me there. I think we might have Amanda on the line from Northumbria, who was in touch with me earlier on, and she was going to be the first one on the programme, but we couldn't connect. Amanda, are you there?
I am.
Oh, thank God for that. I said you...
My apologies for earlier.
Well, do you know, it was a bit of a fix, wasn't it? Because I say to the listeners, ring in. But you'd posted something hugely interesting on social media earlier on. And I said to you, sure, come on and tell me, and I'll give you a phone call and make you the first caller. But I would have been phoning you, which is not ordinarily the way it works. But thankfully, we've connected anyway. Thanks for being there. And you want to talk about something that very few people know about, but it is true. And that is the government and the National Health Service is making provisions for a lot of people to have adverse effects from these new vaccines. Tell us more about this, Amanda.
Yeah, well, that is very true. I was looking on a procurement website and I found that documents that show that the MHRA were wishing to procure an AI software tool. And this tool, what they wanted was this tool to handle the expected large amounts of ADRs or adverse drug reactions that they were going to get from the COVID-19 vaccine. The document went on to say that they felt that they couldn't retrofit their legacy system that they had in place at the moment to handle the volume of the ADRs that they will be generated by the COVID-19 vaccine.
That's spooky, that, isn't it? Well, it's,
I know.
Putting it mildly to say it's spooky. They're telling us on the one hand, don't worry a bit about the fact that it's been rolled out in a few months. Don't worry a jot about it. It's all hunky-dory. And I won't say secretly, but they're certainly not doing it. They're certainly not doing it in the public glare. Behind the scenes, they're saying, hey, guys, be prepared for a big volume of people who will be badly affected by the vaccine. I mean, that's dreadful, Amanda.
I know. I couldn't believe it because I listened to a gentleman called Del Bigtree on the High Wire. I don't know if you've
I know
listened
Del.
to
Yeah,
him.
he had a lot to do with Vaxxed. He produced it, didn't he? Directed it, maybe. The movie Vaxxed,
Yeah, amazing guy. So I listened to him quite a lot, and he said on the show that his team had found this document. And then I thought, right, okay, I'm going to try and hunt for this. So it's taken me 3 weeks, but I finally found it. So that's why I sent it to you this morning, because I knew you'd be very interested.
Yeah. Oh, it's stunning stuff, Amanda, really. On the day that they're telling people, listen, don't worry about it. It's all hunky-dory. We've, one of the doctors who spoke on BBC Radio 5 Live today said, look, we're not really worried about adverse side effects. We know that anybody who does have side effects will have them within the first 30 minutes, and it's likely to be a bit of pain or a bit of nausea. Now, that's a stone-cold lie. Rubbish. Yeah.
Yeah, utter rubbish. I mean, there's just a lack of transparency, isn't there, with the whole sort of vaccine agenda. I did also read that the human medicines regulations of 2012 have been amended. Have you seen that?
No, tell me.
Right. I sort of noticed as well that they've changed the human medicine regulations, and they've added extra people onto it. So they've changed the qualified persons who can actually administer.
Excuse me. Yes, yeah. I do know. This is scandalous. Yeah, they've even talked about Boy Scouts giving it, haven't they? That's not a joke. Oh my God.
I know, can you believe it? Honestly, it looks as if also this is going to be an unlicensed product, an unlicensed vaccine. So they've got a temporary license in place until they can finally do the full license. It's the first time, from what I understand, that we've ever done this in the UK at all.
Unbelievable. Hey, listen, let's remind people why Amanda came on. While they're telling us to take the vaccine, and Boris Johnson is advising we take it because we'll get back to normality as quickly as possible, they are preparing themselves. And Amanda posted this on Facebook today. I'll retweet and repost this later on. They have been themselves admitting to themselves that they're very worried that their own systems won't be able to cope with the volume of people who get adversely affected by the vaccine. Are you listening to this? This is deadly serious. And you said, Amanda, remind us that they've even looked into developing an artificial intelligence program to handle the volume of people who get sick from the vaccine.
Yeah, I'll just read a little bit that I've written down.
Read as much as you want, go ahead.
The MHRA wish to procure an AI software tool to handle the expected large numbers of ADRs from the COVID-19 vaccine. It goes on to say that they cannot retrofit their legacy system to handle the volume of ADRs that will be generated by a COVID-19 vaccine.
Scandalous.
So, anyone can find this.
Yeah.
It's easy to find on the government documents, and it's there. And they have, by the look of it, they've actually secured a contract. There's a company called Genpact, if anybody knows who they are.
I know who they are.
They're the ones that have been awarded the contract.
Yeah, they're based in India. It's a service.
Okay,
it's a service it's a company that provides a range of services for other companies around the world. And what it's done, this Genpact, what it's done is it's basically undercut every other company in the world on a range of services, whether it be accounting, whether it be call centre providers, all sorts of stuff, dreadful stuff. And this is why I got an email when I came on air today, I got an email from a friend of mine who works in commercial radio, and he loves me, and he looks out for me. And he said to me today, he said, "You're letting yourself down, Richie, when you use bad words like whores to describe the media. And he's right. It's unbecoming of any professional. But Amanda, what else are they? If you can find that out, now it doesn't matter that you're an articulate, intelligent woman. It doesn't matter. The fact is you don't spend, but you don't spend your day creating radio programs. Nikki Campbell does, Rachel Burden does, Kay Burley does. They know this information. And that's why I use those bad words to describe them, because they should be asking these questions. Burley should be saying to Hancock today, you want everybody to take it, but why are you preparing behind the scenes for a lot of people to become unwell? They're
bought and paid for, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh man.
They must be bought and paid for, definitely.
How are you getting on with all of this? How are you doing?
I was doing okay until about 2 weeks ago, and I've then sort of I just can't see large amounts of people waking up to what's going on, and that has been very depressing for me. So just the last 2 weeks I've really felt it, but before that I was okay. I think we all had a moment at the same time. Listen to Jonathan. He said it got difficult for him a few weeks ago. It got very difficult for me. Yeah. And you did as well. I wonder, mid-November, was that a time when we all started feeling a bit cheesed off of it? I suppose the clocks had gone back. It was getting dark. It was miserable. I suppose that probably had some... And you are a bit better now. You're facing up to it now. Not really.
No?
No, I just keep researching, and, trying to put the information out there. But it's not very well received, is it, really, by friends and family? Most people don't want to know, or they're too scared to know, I think, or I don't know what the problem is. And I think that's what I kind of find depressing.
Does anybody have an answer, Amanda? Does anybody have an answer to this problem that Amanda has just brought up? Because I don't have the answer to it, and everybody is struggling with this. We know some bad things are going on. We know that the information is there. It isn't... Yeah. It's their own information. This is the thing, and you said this, and other people have said this to me. Their own information can easily be used against them. But you go to a pal, and you get stonewalled, you get ostracized. Listen, Jonathan talked about his own brother. I've heard it so many times. Does anybody have an answer to this? How do you approach family members, or are we just biting our tongues for the rest of our lives, Amanda?
I think we're biting our tongues. Well, no, I don't know. I've done things like I've sent like books to my sister, by Judy Mikovits and people like that, because my sister's an avid reader. And then I've been sending videos that I find to my brother. So I think they're coming around. Luckily, the kids are well on board. They're pretty good. So your own children. Great, so.
Sorry to interrupt you. So your own kids and your husband are on the ball. They're open-minded and they look at the information.
Yes, definitely.
Thank God for that, eh?
I know.
Imagine what life would be like.
Even worse, wouldn't it?
We heard a funny call on LBC radio the other day. A guy called Lee rang in because his wife has gone down the rabbit hole. He said she was reading about anti-vaxxer stuff. So he rang in to the James O'Brien show. He sounded tearful. He didn't know what to do with his wife.
Oh.
Sounded like his wife was on the ball, Amanda, to be honest. But he didn't want to know, so I don't know what's going on.
Oh, it's a shame. Well, thank you very much for letting me tell my little story.
It's very important. No, not at all. It was lovely to meet you. Thanks for listening. Just very briefly, so when did your own voyage of kind of getting away from mainstream sources and reading other publications, when did that begin? If you don't mind me asking that, when did that begin for you?
No, I don't mind. My brother died of cancer about 8 years ago, and that was a real wake-up call for me because I could see all the money going into cancer research, and I just couldn't see why they wouldn't have, solved the problem of cancer. Yeah. So from then on, I started researching. So 8 years really for me. But the kids have kind of woken up just since this has happened, just since the lockdown, really, because my stepdaughter, unfortunately, has lost all of her income because she's in the service industries. So she has two businesses which are service industry based, and they've been locked down. So that was like the wake-up call for her, really. So it's been kind of different times for different members of the family. Yeah. But it's just so sad, isn't it? It's just awful.
Yeah, it is dreadful. Listen, that was a brilliant call. Thanks for sharing that information today. It's just explosive information. They're telling us everything is hunky-dory while they're preparing to deal with an avalanche of people badly affected by vaccines. You couldn't make it up.
Yeah.
Oh.
Will you actually put that online, or should I tell people where to find the document so they can go and find it themselves?
You can do that now if you want, and then I'll repost it on Facebook later. But yeah, do it now, Amanda. Where can they go?
Okay, yeah, it's really easy. It's ted.europa.eu, and then you type in 506291-2020, and that brings it up. So it's as simple as that. It's right there. Don't take my word for it. Go and have a look yourself.
And it's bombshell stuff. Merry Christmas to you and yours, Amanda. Thanks for joining in today.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Richie.
Lovely to hear from you. Bye now. Lovely lady, Amanda in Northumbria. I believe, don't want to be giving too much away about my listeners, but I believe that Amanda lives on a farm. Jane was trying to get through to me, and Faisal is an old pal of the programme, so I'd like to get Faisal on for a few minutes, but I want to get Jane on if Jane is listening. She's tried to connect with me on Skype, and my pal Jean-Anne Crowley tipped me off that Jane might try and phone in this evening. Jane's a clinical hypnotherapist, and it's kind of timely. Jane's mum is in hospital, has been in hospital over the last few days, and Jane has also got the issue or the problem of dealing with her own family who don't see things in the same way that Jane sees them. So I'd like to get her on if I possibly can. And what I am also going to do, what are we today? We're the 2nd, aren't we? I swear on all that is holy, we will do another one of these phone-ins 2 weeks from today, or even a week on Monday. So if I don't get Faisal on, for example, and if I don't get anybody else on, I'll get you on next time. But I want to get Jane on. Faisal's a pal of the programmes. He's been on these phone-ins before, but not for ages. Let's give Jane a bell and get her on, because it's important. I want to stay with this theme. By the way, if you've just joined or tuned in, it is your Richie Allen radio show. It is live from Salford in the northwest of the UK with me, the BBG. The time is 27 minutes to 7 o'clock. It is the global phone-in. We've had some very interesting calls and some very heartfelt calls so far this evening. Let's welcome Jane to the programme. Jane, I'm glad we connected. How are you? You well?
Oh, I've been better, Richie, but thank you so much for taking my call.
Not at all. I saw an email from Jean-Anne very close to airtime today, which was timely. And then I was looking out for you over the last hour and a half. So I'm glad I found you. You're a clinical hypnotherapist. Your mum is in hospital at the moment, and you're dealing with family issues around about, at the same time you're dealing with family issues. Tell us what's going on, Jane.
Okay. So my mum was admitted into hospital on the 20th of November. It turned out that she had basically her bowel had perforated, and she had sepsis. And so on the early hours of the 21st, the Saturday, she went into surgery. Now, on admission in A&E, they'd taken a test. And guess what? The test came out positive.
For COVID.
She, as I say, spent 3 days in ICU, and obviously I've not been able to see her. She's still in hospital now. And she has had, I must say, very, very wonderful care. But it's all been about COVID this, COVID that. She's now got a permanent colostomy bag and a permanent catheter, and hopefully I'm going to be picking her up on Saturday. At this point, I'd just like to say that in July, my mum actually moved in with me. I'm very lucky to be able to care in a multi-generational home for my mum.
Great.
And also my 85-year-old mother-in-law as well. For obvious reasons, I wanted to take over their care, and I've actually kind of put my own career on hold, so to speak, whilst I do that.
How challenging is that, Jane? Do you mind me asking? You have your mum, and you've not said how old your mum is, you might not want to, and you have your 85-year-old mother-in-law as well. Mm-hmm. Is that challenging, Is that difficult?
It is hard, bless them. I mean, my mum does actually have a terminal illness called CADASIL. It's very, very rare. And it ends with dementia, or a form of dementia. And bless my 85-year-old mother-in-law, she's starting to get a bit forgetful as well. But we're fortunate enough to be in a position where, you know, we had a house that we were able to accommodate them in, and it's working quite well. I mean, as I say, I'm self-employed as a clinical hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner. I'm also a spiritual healer. And I started my journey on awakening probably back in 2012 when I had a massive awakening. And I've been kind of the black sheep of my family right from birth, pretty much, apart from my mum, who's always been there for me. But the point of my call today really was I am actually estranged from one of my brothers.
Because of is that because of your beliefs? Because of your interest in the right? Okay.
Yeah, and I've actually been accused by lots of family members of being a bit crazy and a bit nutty, and they're very, very kind of scientifically minded, and anything that kind of goes against the official narrative, they just won't have it at all. But I've been absolutely devastated the last couple of weeks. Obviously, it's been very painful having mum in hospital anyway, and it was touch and go for a few days. But my family have questioned my integrity in terms of my lack of wearing a mask, and my basically saying that I was responsible for her getting COVID.
Right, okay.
And they seem to disregard that she had a perforated bowel and sepsis.
And might have picked up COVID, even if she does have COVID, might have picked it up inside the hospital anyway.
Well, you know, she was asymptomatic anyway. And in fact, the surgeon after the surgery said to me, we're very surprised your mum is showing positive as COVID. But everything has been COVID. And when I actually spoke to my mum for the first time, I think probably last Monday after the surgery, she said to me, one of the first things she said was, I've got COVID. And I said, have you, mum? And she said, yes, but she said, you know, they're all being very nice with me. And I said, but mum, you've had a really major operation. And she's been completely brainwashed with the COVID thing as well.
And you said and thank God she's asymptomatic. And you said the family have been griping about you not wearing a mask. Is that concerning for you? Why? Is it concerning because did they object to you caring for your mum now? Is there any issue there?
Well, okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what I had. I had an evening of really nasty texts from one of my siblings who said that I had blood on my hands. He said that I was scum. He said that, you know, do you believe in COVID now? And actually last Friday, my mum deteriorated with the sepsis, but my brother insisted she had deterioration from the COVID, and sent me into a complete spin. And I started to think, oh goodness, what's going on? I spoke to the doctor. I managed to get hold, because it's so hard to get hold of any of the staff at the hospital anyway. But they said to me, no, she's absolutely fine. As far as COVID is concerned, there's no breathing issues. There's absolutely nothing going on at all. You know, it's literally just we're worried about the sepsis. But my point is, I think everybody has been so brainwashed in terms of fear with the COVID that when somebody is admitted into hospital with something else, it's almost forgotten. And the other thing I'd like to point out as well, my mum's had exemplary kind of care from the staff, and I haven't got any...
She's been looked after. She's been well looked after, you said.
She has, but I have to say, since she tested positive a couple of days ago, that seems to have gone downhill a little bit. Tested negative a couple of days ago, because they keep on testing them whilst they're in hospital. Yeah. And, you know, her care seems to, I mean, I can't say 100% because I'm not there, and mum does seem a little confused, but she's basically seems to be left alone for longer periods and has got bladder problems still, so she's still quite seriously ill.
And what about the sepsis then? Is she on the right side of that now, Jane?
Yeah, she seems to be, her bloods are okay now, so hopefully Once they get her permanent catheter sorted out, and somebody actually teaches me how to change her colostomy bag, because that's another problem. I'm her main carer.
You'll be doing that now, yeah.
And I'm supposed to be in isolation until Friday. And so I've got no idea how I'm going to be able to care for her when she comes home.
When you say no idea, you really don't know what's going to happen at the end of the week.
No, I really don't.
And what is the hospital saying, or the doctors? Are they giving you any advice at all?
Well, the hospital were trying to arrange a Zoom or a Skype call, so they would show me how to do her bag today. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. They couldn't get hold of a computer, and it was all a bit of a balls up, to be honest. So, so we'll wait and see what happens. But clinically, she's moving towards starting to being able to be discharged. But I'm worried about how I'm going to be able to care for her if I've not been shown what to do, because they won't let me anywhere near the hospital.
You'll need to know that, won't you? I wonder, is there anything online, whether it be YouTube or something, that could give you, there's a tutorial, Jane, online for everything. Honest to God, the amount of times I can't figure out how to do something in the house and I just go to YouTube and I'm embarrassed then. Can I ask you about your brother? And I'm not trying to play Mr. Nice Guy here, because I'm not Mr. Nice Guy. I've fallen out with more people over the years than I've had hot dinners. But you said yourself that people are on edge. They really are on edge. They're very paranoid about this. Your brother, it's not good to be sending text messages to people, accusing them, especially not your sister, and swearing at them and all of that. But he's just like everybody else. He doesn't know where he's going, or whether he's coming or going. His head is probably spinning at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm, that's right. He seems to have, a lot of my family members seem to have gone completely, like so many others, in so much fear. All of the propaganda that's constantly fed to us all day, every day. He completely believes what's being fed. And I must say that my own brother has only seen my mum once in the last year and wouldn't come near her, not because he was worried about giving COVID to her. It's because he was worried about catching COVID from mum, because she'd been around me as a carer. And also my husband, who is a primary school teacher, and around kind of like obviously 30 odd children every single day. So I think he's just got so caught up in the fear, as my own father has. My own father, hasn't come anywhere near us, won't come over at Christmas, even though that they are obviously saying they're going to allow kind of households to mix. But I think so many people are so in fear. It's just ruined. It's caused complete division within families.
And Jane, they only need to look at the government's own statistics, which show that the vast, vast majority of people are like your mum. They're asymptomatic. If this thing is even real. And I'm not saying it isn't now, but it's an incredible thing to me that flu has disappeared off the face of the earth in recent weeks. They just need people to look at the government's own papers on this and listen to the things that Chris Whitty and Valence have been saying, where they admitted that really the vast majority of people have nothing to fear from it. And if they did, they wouldn't be so fearful. I don't know. Jane, I wish you the best with it. I'm glad we connected. I really am.
Thank you for taking my call.
Anytime.
Keep doing what you're doing. I think you're amazing.
Not at all. And you too. And look after your mum. And do go online and look for tutorials. Let's hope the hospital gets back to you with the Zoom call. But you'll get lots of help online to do with changing colostomy bags and how to help someone like that. And you know what, Jane? To be looking after your elderly mum and your mother-in-law like that, you're an angel. Well done.
Oh, thanks, Richie.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye for now. Yeah, I had a friend years ago, a Libyan gentleman, called Salah. I used to have hair one time. I know nobody believes this. Nobody buys this at all, you never had hair. I used to have hair. And I lived in Rusholme. Rusholme is well known in Manchester as an area with a very large Asian community. But when you think Asian, you might think Pakistani, but no, from probably 20 countries, probably. Bangladesh, everywhere. A great, vibrant place is Russia. And there was a Libyan gentleman there who used to cut hair called Salah. And he was a lovely guy. I wish I'd stayed in touch with him. And he was married to an English girl, white English girl. She was, like myself, she was agnostic. And he was a very tolerant Libyan Muslim who went to the mosque. We were chatting about our cultures one day, and he said, I love being over here, Richie. I love the UK. I love the live and let live attitude, which he practiced himself. But one of the things he did say to me, and I'll never forget it, he said, I don't understand, he said, and a lot of Muslims don't understand how quick you are to put mum and dad into care homes. Now, of course, I challenged him. And I said, listen now, Salah, me old mucker, there are times when you can't care, you don't have the skills or the ability to care for your elderly relatives. And he said, yeah, that's fair enough. But he said, I think you're a bit quick to do that. We, our Islamic customs, we don't like that. We prefer that we look after our seniors. And I thought that was lovely. And it's lovely listening to Jane. There's always time for Faisal there. How you doing, pal? Are you well? I'm glad I got you on. How are things?
Hi, I'm fine.
Glad I got you on, because you would have been cursing me and swearing at me on Twitter and saying you bastard. Because it's been a long time since we've spoken, so I'm going to shut the hell up because we've got about 10 minutes.
I've really enjoyed listening to other people.
Thanks, Faisal, mate. It's lovely of you to say that. How are you getting on with everything that's been happening, particularly today? What do you think?
Well, I'm sort of up and down with it, frankly. I don't. It hasn't changed my life much. I just go around doing exactly the same as I've done before, and admittedly, there's some friends who are kind of iffy about me visiting, not because of themselves, but actually their kids are, I think, a bit brainwashed, or one of them is.
Yeah.
And my brother's completely brainwashed, and so he usually used to visit every now and again, and so I think he might be visiting at Christmas, but that's about it.
Let's hope so, mate, because
so a few things have been affected, but as such, it's just there's a little bit of occasional despair at what's happening in the world. But then again, for me, it's probably better than other people, because I've basically seen the world being in this kind of tyrannical state for a hell of a long time.
Yeah, you knew it was coming, and you did know it was coming.
Compared to many people.
Yeah, this is it.
I mean, it was just the surprise exactly how it was happening and how absurd it is, and how intelligent people have reacted to it. Really, I expected it to be a much more of a draconian clampdown, but with more people sort of knowing the way it is, maybe like the way things were in the Soviet Union, or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But it's been quite an education to see how it's actually sort of slowly happened. But I still think a lot of it's kind of panicky, to do with basically, I think a lot of people have been protesting. France in particular, with the yellow vests, was because the yellow vest protest was kind of non-political. It was right and left, and they couldn't kind of categorize it into one political group, so it was a big problem for them, because I think they had a lot of sympathy from people, even though they might have been scared to go out on the protest.
Yeah.
And so I think that was one of the main triggers for this COVID clampdown, which just seemed a bit rushed, to be honest, and a bit cack-handed in a lot of ways.
This is very interesting. So you think this COVID plan was in the offing, but it might have been brought forward basically to alleviate certain things that were happening, maybe?
Yeah, I think they had to have something. I think they were maybe even considering an alien false flag, but in the end they went with this. Which I think it gets very complicated behind the scenes. I think there's lots of reasons for it. I think the pharma companies had a big influence on this, because they really have wanted this for a hell of a long time.
Yeah.
And maybe other factions were saying, oh no, this'll, we're not going to be able to sell this. This is going to fall apart. It's not a good plan. And so they didn't do it. I think it was something they tried to do with the swine flu epidemic and the bird flu epidemic, but I think because they were panicking about other things, they finally said yes to it. That's sort of as close as I can get to the.
It's
compare it to Roman politics,
very plausible.
And medieval politics, and bringing it to modern day.
It's plausible, mate. There's no doubt about that. I certainly wouldn't be trying to shoot it down. And now that it is happening, do you think they're happy with the way it's progressing? Is it going well for them? It seems to be.
I think they're lurching from place to place. I think it seems worse than it is because we're just not getting real news from other countries. I think I know there's certain situations in Switzerland because I have relatives there that we're not getting the news on. Where
give me an example now.
There was an example in my hometown where just after the initial lockdown, there was a kind of celebration at the sort of community centre, a town called Grenchen. And then they were all, there was a COVID panic. They're all tested for COVID, and it was supposed to be one woman who I think had a cold or something like that and went to the celebration. And so everybody at that celebration, about 200 people, had to be locked down. Mm. And it was even on, I think, Swiss television, but definitely in one of the newspapers called The Blick, which is like the Sun over here. Who were demonising this woman for going to the party when she shouldn't have, and she was protesting the whole time because she never tested positive, and she finally got, I think, her doctor's testimony that she hadn't tested positive for COVID. That this was all a complete mistake to do with any kind of lockdown in the first place, but also. Defamation and slander from the media and the newspapers for saying it was all her fault, and it was for a very short time, because even there it's very propagandized, so it kind of got wiped off the news very quickly. It got covered up very quickly.
Of course it would. We don't want people hearing that, do we?
Yeah, that was in my hometown. Of course, there's not a word of that anywhere else. And you won't be able to get any of the news stories on the internet. I looked and I tried, but you see, I got that from my aunt who Skypes regularly with my mum, and she's very brainwashed. She's very kind of worried about COVID and very disapproving of my mum being sceptical about COVID and so on. And she actually got that from my aunt, and then later on, my mum keeps giving that example to her to remind her of it, to say, well, just how the media can lie.
Yeah, and don't believe the sources. I don't know if you heard any of this last night, but a businesswoman called Emma, who isn't Emma, but is very well known, it must be said, and liked, was on the programme with me last night. She's done this thing to help people out with using official sources. Do you know what's happened today? This is astonishing now. So she comes on last night, and I saw a post that she put in a private group where she's anonymous, where she put all these official links to challenge the establishment story and to help people if they're told to have a vaccine. So if you're told to have a vaccine, she said, show these links, show these real stories to your bosses or whatever. Would you believe that most of those links are now broken today? Would you believe that?
Well, yeah, because I've been seeing that happening for a long time. It's, I think, the last year, 2 years, it's really accelerated, but it's been happening steadily even before that.
Yeah.
But on Twitter, I've noticed when you, that was, I think, last year when I tried to search a tweet that I knew I'd tweeted a couple of years back, and it was sort of coming to fruition now, and I wanted to show off that that I'd been there like years ago, and of course couldn't find it. Tried to search other tweets that were more recent, couldn't find those. So Twitter's done that for some time now, where you can't search. It's completely changed the search, so there's loads of tweets you just won't be able to find, even if you know you've done them. You have to screenshot them all if you want to save tweets.
It's the
and of course on the internet with broken links as well.
Yeah, it's the unholy alliance, isn't it, of Google, of Twitter and Facebook. That's basically their job. The three of those companies, Their job is to give you one version of everything, one version of any event, and to slowly, maybe not slowly, but to as quietly as possible, to erase everything else. And I want to just repeat what I said to Faisal there. Emma, who was on the programme yesterday, put a brilliant post together with links to official sources and stories in the mainstream media and the BMJ, the British Medical Journal, and all that sort of stuff that you could use to say, listen, this is why I shouldn't be forced to have a vaccine. And many, if not all of those links are broken today. That is astonishing to me. You might think I'm naive, but it's the speed of that overnight. We've got about 90 seconds left, my friend. I'm going to give you those 90 seconds.
As well.
Go on.
If you can document that with screenshots, that's actually great evidence to show other people. When they suppress stuff, they quite often shoot themselves in the foot, because then that's a great way to confirm it and even more compelling evidence.
We'll talk again, mate, no doubt about it. We'll get you on again, we'll have more time.
I just wanted to mention one thing quickly.
Quick as you can, go ahead.
Grenfell, which I did tweet yesterday about it. There was a Channel 4 report on Channel 4 News to do with the flammable insulation. I've tried to look for this on the internet, and all you can find is the whole 3-hour thing about the inquiry where it comes up. But I mean, trying to find that bit is like trying to find the needle in a haystack. Where I think Wintech, that company that originally warns I think the people who ran Grenfell or the people who were manufacturing this insulation, that it's flammable, which is of course nonsensical. It's not just incredibly dangerous and criminal, but producing flammable insulation, if you know anything about building, all insulation is kind of rock wall based usually, and is nowhere near flammable. There's no excuse ever to make any kind of insulating material for building.
That fire was meant to happen, Faisal, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that's
only
3 years later. Yeah. Like it trickled out at the time. Yeah, okay, the cladding was flammable. That's outrageous. The fire doors didn't work that they'd fitted during that renovation as well. Didn't work. If it had come out at the time that the insulation they'd put in also was flammable, I think that would have blown. There's no way that cannot be criminal.
I'll find that information on your Twitter, and if I can get somebody relevant on the show to talk about that, I will, because that's massive. That sincerely,
just tweet out quickly that screenshot I did yesterday. I do have it recorded. I do have that report, but I have to edit it.
Sure,
it was actually accidentally recorded when I was trying to record something else, and I'd overrun because I don't have a timer, and I found it over there completely by accident, so I have to edit that bit out, and then I'll see if I can get it to you somehow.
Do, mate. Faisal, thanks for talking to me today. I really appreciate it. Always love having you on.
No problem. Really enjoy having a chat again. I enjoy listening so much. I actually haven't called for a while.
So do I, mate. So do I. We get some fantastic callers. Thanks for that, Faisal. That was Faisal. You see him on Twitter. You'll see me retweeting him and tweeting him if you want to follow him. Now, that's it for today. Got no time. Just want to say 2 things. Jonathan spoke to us earlier on. If you do say a prayer for Joan, for his mum who's 95, that she'll be okay over the Christmas, and he is booked in to see her, and that works out for him. And for Jane, who's looking after her mum who's very elderly, and her mother-in-law as well, send out your best thoughts and prayers to Jane as well. Thanks to all the callers, by the way, Alexandra, everybody who called in this evening. I really appreciated listening to you. We'll do this again very soon. Until tomorrow at 5 o'clock, it's bye from me. Thanks for your time and for taking the time out to call me. I really appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, eh?